All right. We are here with Jon Hannan. Jon is a city councilman. He is also in the athletic department at Streetsboro High School, a cross-country coach, the founder, one of the founders, him and his brother Pete, are the founders of the Running Rockets. So, Jon, just tell us a little bit about your background and, just a little bit about your background and yourself.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I'm a lifelong resident of Streetsboro. Attended Streetsboro schools through 8th grade. Then I went to Crestwood, so I got a little connection there with you at
Sure.
Crestwood. But yeah, I wear a lot of hats. Like you said, I'm city councilman. I also work at the schools in the athletic department. I've been on city council since 2017. I've been in the athletic department since end of 2023. Been a part of Running Rockets since 2017 as well. And then additionally to that, I'm in the National Guard, which I've been in since 2015. So yeah, I love Streetsboro. I love giving back to it. That's why I like to wear a lot of different hats and give back to the community.
Awesome. So what are some experiences growing up that shaped the way that you give back to the community now?
When I was growing up, I was always interested in government.
Okay.
I love learning about that and just, not a lot of people find interest in that. So,
Sure.
I always would Google like how government works and stuff like that. And it just was something that was really interested in me. And then, I started following our local government. And then I realized once I was 23, there was also an open seat. Because in Streetsboro, you have to be 23 to run for office. You can't be 18. They changed that rule.
Yeah, I remember
back in the day. So it was perfect timing, and there were actually 3 seats open at the time. I took the opportunity to get involved in that. So yeah, just being interested in that as a kid, and then on the coaching side, obviously my dad is a high school football coach. I've been a coach my whole life, so just being around high school sports as a kid really kind of just helped shape my interest in coaching and my interest now as being a member of the athletic department.
Awesome. And would you say your dad is probably one of the main influences for your...
Yeah. I believe, don't quote me on this, but I believe that he was a founding member of the youth football program at Crestwood.
Awesome.
So like just being, hearing about those experiences, and then obviously getting into coaching at Streetsboro with cross country, then starting Running Rockets with my brother, that just... hearing that experience from him when we were little, now, being able to start our own youth program was inspiring to us.
That's awesome. So tell us a little bit more about Running Rockets and like why you decided to get it started.
Yeah, so my brother Pete, he's another big influence, and I definitely want to give him a shout out because him and I, we were like co-founders of it, right?
Sure.
Like obviously we both had big roles in it. We were both coaching at the middle school. He actually, I was a football player when I was growing up.
Yeah.
So I didn't want to get into coaching football just from the time that was put into it.
Sure.
So I started coaching cross country with him, helping him out take time. So just through talking, we were like, hey, it would be beneficial for us to have a youth program, because when we were coaching middle school, kids would come out for the first time. You'd have to teach them the running form, just the basics of running.
Sure.
And then these parents and families would show up at meets and have no idea what was going on, because not many people have been to a cross country meet until they, they have a kid that does it, right? So, so we were like, we need to start something like every other program has as a youth program, and just get these people the basics of running, the basics of coming to a meet. And then, we've been doing that for 9 years now, and it's been very beneficial. I mean, our numbers are down right now for this year because I know our football program has a lot of numbers.
Okay.
At the youth level, especially with flag football coming into play.
Nice.
But so we wanted to give back, and I think it's been beneficial, especially for the kids that don't necessarily want to play soccer or basketball or football or cheerleading. It gives them another option to just go out there and.
So it is boys and girls then.
It
with
is,
that?
yeah.
Nice, very nice.
Yep.
And how many? How many did you start with the first year? Do you remember?
Yeah, so we were kind of surprised. I mean, we had like 50 or 60 kids come out. So it was and our numbers went up a little bit too during the pandemic when people were kind of going away from contact sports. But I think, some of the kids that I coach now at the varsity level have ran through Running Rockets, through middle school, through high school. So it's kind of cool to now see the end result of that, where these kids have been running for, 10 years. Whereas before it was like they would come out in middle school. And
Sure.
by the time they were done with it, it was only 5 or 6 years.
That is really cool. That's where I'm at now, in my coaching career as well. I've seen our now seniors when they were in kindergarten and first grade, and to be able to see them, how they develop as people, it's pretty special.
Yeah, it's kind of nice, being the varsity coach. I also have a big influence in the middle school program, and our cross country is a little bit different than most sports, where our middle school and high school teams travel together for the most part everywhere. So we get to see the development of the so pretty much from kindergarten through 12th grade. I get to see the development of those kids, so it's kind of rewarding just to see them come through and improve as a runner, but also our main goal too is just to create great young kids that go on to be great humans in life. So
and that's probably what all of us as coaches hope to instill, is that they become great kids, and you get invited to those weddings and can really develop a relationship
really cool
with kids.
And actually, my first year coaching, an 8th grade kid on the team is now my middle school coach. So
that's great.
It's kind of cool to see that come back.
That's really cool.
But yeah, through Running Rockets, so I think it was just kind of like a perfect storm. Pete is the runner and did all the kind of the paperwork and everything to get it going. I feel like I'm better, at managing things, right? So fundraising, stuff like that.
Sure.
So we've worked really well together over the years, and now we're getting into our life where he's married, I'm getting married.
Sure.
We want to have kids, so we may transition out of it eventually, but we still want to have definitely a say in the program.
And see how. Absolutely. So how do you balance competition with teaching life lessons? That's something you touched on, as life lessons.
Well, running's great with that, and I don't know if you've ever been to a cross country race, but it's one of those sports where even the other teams, everyone's cheering for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
From the best kid to the slowest kid, everybody's cheering for everybody to come through the finish line. So that's really cool to see, and just I always tell my kids, I'm like, you don't have to be the best out there. Everybody here is running a race for their own reason. Whether that if you have a kid that's running a 30-minute, that kid's trying to beat his time to get a 29-minute, right? Whereas we have other kids that are closer to the front of the race that are trying to get in the top 10 or so that's the cool thing about running, is everybody runs, everybody's running for something different, everyone has their own goals, and then just through competition, being in the athletic department, it's great having standards, right? Being able to just teach kids great life lessons, and just to be great human beings. There's a lot of good lessons that can be taught for being a high school athlete, or not even a high school athlete, from youth or middle school athlete as well. Just showing up on time, being a great teammate, supporting one another.
Absolutely. And you mentioned the athletic department, so you work there. You also serve as a city councilman. So as we transition through, what do you think, what motivates you to take on so many roles?
Yeah, it's a great question. So before I came in here, I actually watched your previous interview with Stephanie at the schools. Something that I thought about when I was in school, they always said you had to pick one thing and stick with it, and I never really liked that idea. I was like, I want to try everything. I don't want to just be a teacher and be that, or just be a coach, or just do this or that. So I've always kind of challenged myself to say, well, I'm going to try to do as many cool things as I can. I have a lot of cool experiences between, I've been a substitute teacher, I've served in the military, I've ran a business, now I work in a school. It's just a cool, I serve on city council. So when people started asking me stuff, I remember my fiance told me when she met me, was I didn't realize that you did 12 different things. But, so I've definitely getting better at balancing all those different hats and stuff like that. But my schedule's always very full.
Yeah.
But I think it's fun. I think it's challenging, and but it's also really rewarding too.
And I agree with that. I feel that same way. Like, I think we're built for more than just to be able to be called one thing.
Yeah.
And that's why I coach as well and own the pizza shop and
Right.
I'm a father and a husband, all that good stuff. But I think at the end of the day we're supposed to give back, and serve, and that's really that's part of our mission at Blasiole is to serve the best pizza and make your day a little better. That's why we built it into there, because serving and giving is really like the best thing you can do for the community, and I think you do a great job of that.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I know, obviously, Blasiole's been around for a while, but I've also been in Streetsboro for a while too. So I remember when I was a kid, it was always my favorite day when my parents had Blasiole's for dinner. That was definitely the best part of the week.
Awesome.
For sure.
So, how do you see all of your roles? So, athletics, coaching, city government. How do you see that all work together to build a stronger community?
Well, that's a great question. I mean, definitely, like the cliche thing to say is that, Friday night football, right? It brings a community together. So,
sure.
I think just being around that, we bring thousands of people to our football stadium when we have home football games, and being an elected official, like it's just cool to see that. You see stuff on Facebook and people are, sometimes negative and whatnot, but then you see that stuff happening in real life, and it's rewarding to see that people are, they're supporting the kids, supporting the community.
Absolutely.
But I definitely think that athletics it definitely brings a lot of people together, so that's really cool to see and be a part of.
That is cool. And I know you started the Streetsboro discussion page back in the day, and I know you just recently transitioned off of that. And when I talked with Glenn, Mayor Braska, earlier this summer, he mentioned you guys are pretty active in checking that stuff and responding to citizens and making things right. So
and that was one of the biggest things that I ran on the first time. It wasn't like I wasn't going to come in and just change everything, right? But the biggest need that I saw was communication. It was a time where Streetsboro didn't have we didn't have a newspaper. We didn't really have. I saw people arguing on. We're not arguing, but discussing, right, on Facebook, different Facebook pages. So it's you had to go to the mayor's personal page. So I was like, well, why don't I just create a place where everybody can go and it's not blowing up someone's personal page.
Sure.
Right? So, and then once I did that, the page blew up. It had 12,000 members, and it was one of those things that's not necessarily I still follow it and stuff. I just got off of because I do a lot of things, and it was just one less thing that I had to put some effort into, and I was like, hey, well, I have other people that are wanting to run this, so I'm gonna let somebody else.
Absolutely. You can't blame you for that at all. So what do you love most about Streetsboro as a community?
Well, I'm a little biased because I've lived here my whole life,
Sure.
right? But I just think that growing up, being in the parks and stuff like that, I think that's a really big highlight for us.
Yeah.
We've in the last couple of years we've invested a lot in the park, so the next generation can benefit that. But I just remember from being a kid and going up to the park all the time, I thought that was really a lasting impression on me that made me want to kind of give back to the next generation. And now being on city council and being able to help facilitate some of those different things. But I think it's just a great supportive place. I think it's a great place to raise a family, and obviously some people, anywhere you go, right, there's going to be people that are positive and negative, but I think we've definitely kind of created a group of people that are in the elected positions that kind of work together and kind of see that vision and want to make Streetsboro a great place to just keep raising families and stuff.
That's great. I mean, and you can see the transition from as you were younger and I was younger, and in what Streetsboro's transition to now, in the new city hall and everything that's happening, the splash pad, and there's a lot of good things happening in the city, and when you think back, when I first moved here, I think it was 1991 or two. It was like right around the time the shop started. It was not a lot happening. You know what I mean? There was still. It was probably one of the bigger towns in Portage County, just because of the amount of traffic we had, but the explosion that we've seen, and in the good growth that we've seen inside the city, I think has been pretty fantastic.
Yeah, and I think just I was a young kid at the time when we really started experiencing that kind of explosion of growth right around the turn of the century there. Which is great. It's just that at the time the city wasn't really set up for we didn't have a full-time mayor. Our income tax collection was lower, so like we weren't like prepared for the explosion of growth. So some of the things that we're working through now as a city, like our infrastructure and stuff, it's to improve and kind of just get up to speed with how many cars come through the city every day, stuff like that.
Kind of catch back up right where we should have been, but just based on the city leadership before the structure of it.
It's not even that anybody was it's just if you're
the structure, right?
If you're a part-time mayor, it's like you working here and then going and doing that. It's like you got to be able to dedicate yourself to in that type of position. You have to be able to dedicate your full time to kind of get the the best for the city.
Absolutely. So you talked about your military experience. You talked about a little bit about of that, and then the athletics and coaching and city council. So let's go into some leadership stuff, because this is interesting to me. I really enjoy talking to other people about leadership. What are some lessons that you've learned about leadership from wearing so many different hats?
It's a great question. I mean, I think the biggest thing is to be transparent. I think one of the things that another thing I ran on was transparency, and I think that kind of goes back to the social media thing. Since I've been on city council, one of the things I've always done is I've posted the agendas on Facebook. Now I know everybody's not on Facebook, but before nobody was posting anything. Nobody knew like when meetings were, so like there were things that were happening that people were like, when was this discussed? Where was our notice? So me putting that stuff out there, I was transparent. I think the biggest thing for me, just because when I got into leadership, I got elected at 24 years old. I'm 31 now, so I still consider myself like a young leader, and I'm still trying to evolve and adapt. But I think if you're transparent with everybody, whoever I talk to in any of my roles, they know where I'm coming from, they know where I stand. They know that I'm a trustworthy person. So I think if you're transparent, you're trustworthy, you communicate well, I think a lot of people will trust you and view you as a good leader. And I think that kind of goes into my coaching experience too. Like I tell people all the time, I never ran cross country, I never ran track, but I communicate well. I care about the kids, so like I think some of those things kind of make up for my lack of running knowledge. I've been doing it for a while, so I've definitely learned a lot, and I have my brother as a resource as well. But because some of those qualities of a leader, they kind of overlook that other experience because I'm kind of making up for that lack of knowledge with my leadership skills.
And you talked about transparency, and I think that's one of the biggest things in leadership is our job as leaders is to eliminate roadblocks from other people, right? And if you're able to communicate, you're able to be transparent, those roadblocks go away because there's nothing to stop other people, right? Like there's nothing to say the connection between you and I isn't there because there's it has to be there because there's no roadblock anymore.
And I think just one of the things that's kind of came up in my mind when we're talking is, I think just I worked I managed a pizza shop for a long time. I think and I always tell people that I work for at the school and in city council, like it's customer service based business. Anywhere you go, I mean, there's a lot of times, there's a lot of people that email me, there's a lot of people that message me on Facebook, and I could easily not respond, right? But that's not being a good, providing good customer service. So
Sure.
like for the, whatever time of the, and it's kind of at my own fault too, right? That I kind of leave myself open to a lot of people because I want to be that reliable person.
Absolutely.
But, so if someone messaged me on Facebook today, I was like, hey, I'll get you an answer, right? And I got back to, I didn't even know the person. I just said, I got him an answer. I got back to him. But,
Sure.
I think that leaves a lasting impression on people. Even like the smallest thing, even in my athletic department job, like, I respond with a physical form, right? Where easily someone could just Google it, but it's like, hey, I have this on my computer. It takes me 1 second.
Right.
So,
and I think that goes back to that servant leadership mentality that we talked about earlier. And, that's, to me, that's the best type of leader. Someone that's willing to give and give you everything that you have. And I see that in you and everything that we talk about. If you could give one piece of advice to a young person that about serving their community and leadership, what would it be?
Just be yourself.
Yeah.
I feel like, as a younger person in, I guess local politics, right?
Yeah.
And not to like knock on anybody either too, but like, I feel like a lot of people, they get lost in the kind of the, like maybe the glory of, like they kind of lose themselves because they're aiming for like a higher position, right? So, like I was just at the Celebrate Portage thing, and me and the kids, like we weren't in tuxes and stuff like that, right? We're just, we were there, we dressed up a little bit, but I just told the kids, I said, look, just be yourself. You guys are here because you earned this nomination.
Yeah.
Like, you don't have to get up to anyone else's standards. You guys are your own people. So I would just, advise people to be themselves. I feel like I've, this is who I am. Like this, I've gotten to where I am just by being myself. I think, I got elected at a young age because I put myself out there and showed people the real me and showed people that I cared.
Yeah.
And I think, that'll carry people a long way.
Do you find that to be a little bit hard in your positions, like to just be able to be yourself, like at certain points because of, at city council, you've had, people that are been here forever and they.
A little bit, I mean, definitely just because when I still am, pretty young compared to the people that I serve, not necessarily with, but like, just like people that are in positions in City Hall and, I guess who on City Council, right? And especially when I first got elected, there was a 15-year age gap between me and the next youngest person in the room. So definitely just being around, those people, like they all knew I was younger and I guess maybe had like, there's a weird, like, people think that we're immature, that we're, when we're younger, but I kind of took that on as a challenge and just, showed people who I really was. And
Awesome.
I think that's benefited me, and now I'm 31 and running for my third term. So
that's great.
Hopefully I get it, and hopefully people, like what I'm doing and trust me to keep doing it.
Absolutely. So what do you see as your vision? You said you're running for your third term. What's your vision for the city for your next term? Like, what do you want it to be?
Well, I mean, obviously the easy answer is just to say continue the progress that we have. But,
sure.
I think I took the challenge when I first got on because, at the time they were trying to do like the whole, like that city center project. But there was like, we didn't own the land. We just failed a levy to try to build it. So like, we had to overcome a lot of different challenges. So like, we were at like the very base of like some of the ideas. We needed all new city buildings besides the police station.
Sure.
So there was definitely a lot of challenges, but now I feel like it's easier for the future because, like I said, we built a good group of people. We've had a lot of momentum, so now it's not like we've gotten past the part of like arguing about what we want.
Sure.
We figured out a way how to all kind of compromise and do what's best for the city. So now, like, going into this third term, obviously the big exciting thing is that the city hall is going to open.
Yeah.
But now we want the challenge of like what's next.
Yeah.
One of the big things is an amphitheater.
Okay. Very nice.
Yeah, I know that that's been something that's been on our radar for a while.
Okay.
We've had some talks about it. Just kind of just continuing our work on infrastructure, stuff like that. Obviously the thing that people see the most are like the roads.
Yeah.
Right? So we've done a lot with that, and just kind of continuing the progress that we've made over the last 8 years.
That's awesome. So next one's just a little weird thing, but like, what's your go-to pizza order?
Well, the classic is just the pepperoni.
Sure.
But sometimes my brother and I will order.
Okay.
Or like when we, because I don't know if you knew this, but one of my first jobs was actually here.
Yeah. Yeah.
So like we would always make like the barbecue chicken pizza.
Okay.
So I really like that with the breaded chicken though.
Yeah, that is the best.
Yeah. So yeah, probably something simple, like even when I just come here by myself, or if I bring the fiance here, like just get a pepperoni.
Awesome.
I think that's just a classic.
You can't go wrong, right?
Yeah.
Good deal. Outside of coaching and community service, what do you enjoy doing with your free time?
Or
what little free time you have, I guess.
So there's not a whole lot of free time, but I learned one of the most relaxing things, even though not many people view it as relaxing, is like yard work. I love throwing the headphones on, going out in my yard. My dad was still a big yard work guy.
Yeah.
So like he always kept his yard really nice. So I've taken that
awesome
to pride. Just the house that I own, putting the work into it and making it a home is definitely something that I take pride in. Other than that, I actually I do like playing video games.
Okay.
Not like some people, like with all the action games.
Yeah.
I'm just a simple like Madden guy.
Okay. Very nice.
So I've found it relaxing, and in some of the toughest moments in my life, like I just play Madden, and it takes my mind off of things.
Yeah.
So sometimes after a real long day, even if it's 10 o'clock at night, I'll throw it on, play a game of Madden, and it just football's been a part of my life,
sure.
forever. So maybe it's just one of those kind of relaxing things
yeah.
that I do. Other than that, though, I mean, love spending time with the fiance.
Yeah.
Sandra and I, we like to walk a lot. So,
okay.
That's something that we do just to kind of, she's a school teacher, so, or a high school math teacher. So,
very nice.
We, after a long day, we like to take
those
walks.
parks.
Yeah, exactly. We
nice.
go to a lot of parks and just get some steps in and
awesome.
talk and just get away from, the hustle and bustle and whatnot.
Of everything. Yeah, absolutely. If your athletes had to describe 3 words to describe you, what would they say? What do you think they'd say?
That's a great question. I definitely think one of the biggest thing is like I'm laid back.
Okay.
How I am right now is basically how I am all the time. Like barely ever do I yell.
Sure.
I lose my voice a lot too, so like the kids know that I'm super laid back. I would definitely say fun.
Okay.
Because I am. It's just how I am. I like to have a good time. I like to laugh and
awesome.
make jokes and stuff, and then caring as well.
Caring.
I think I've put a lot into the program, and I think they see that, and I think that's what I'll have to do is I'll have to ask them.
Yeah, I'd be interested to know.
Nonchalantly, I'd be like, hey, what's 3 things that would describe me, just to see how it matches up.
Yeah, that is. I mean, that's something that we talk about with my coaches and my managers here. Is like, how do they perceive you?
Yeah.
I guess like you obviously have a different vision, but what do your people think of you? So like that to me is something that opens up some eyes.
Right. Yeah, I like to play. I like to joke around with them and